Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third season of Decentralized Voices. My name is Daria, and I'm excited to welcome the smart and charismatic Dariia Porechna. She's a co founder of EternaX, a cryptographer, and someone who knows how AI significantly improve DeFi. This time, we are doing a bullish bullshit show. Daria, I'll give you 10 statements about the current state of AgentFi, DeFi, and startup culture. You have to say whether you're bullish or if you think it's bullshit, and explain why you think so. You can't say it depends.
Thank you for having me, Daria, my name's sister. So we actually met on Twitter, so this was amazing connection, and I'm glad to finally be a part of this amazing thing that you're doing with the Decentralized Voices. I've seen several episodes, and I love it. So I'm very excited to participate in this.
Thanks so much. And I'm also super excited to have you. And actually, I have a few intro questions. Please share a bit about your background and how did you get into this AI, DeFi rabbit hole?
Well, so I'm originally from Ukraine, like yourself, and I went to the Kiev Polytechnic and I studied applied maths, and my thesis was in cryptography. So when you have a degree in cryptography, you basically have two really well paved roads. One of them is military intelligence and the other is academia. I kind of didn't feel like the either. I dropped off my master's and I worked at Wolfram Research for almost 5 years at Wolfram Alpha product. At the time, it was really big. It was like the first, question answering AI. It was in a part of Siri. And that's kind of like my classical AI sort of background. And then Stephen Wolfram, the CEO, he wanted to get more into like blockchains, and especially part of that software is like data analytics. So I was writing the connector from like Bitcoin, Ethereum to gather data and to make it a part of their software without their enterprise offering to do data analysis on this blockchain part. So that's kind of how I got more and more into Web3 and the ethos and all of these things. Was it more than 4 years ago? I completely pivoted to Web3 part. I was a research engineer. I volunteered for cover projects. I was a head of protocol at a decentralized storage protocol that launched last year. So, and now it's been almost a year that I decided I wanted to venture on my own with my co-founders and build EternaX to make DeFi accessible to the rest of us who are not pro traders.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's for great intro. And can you please give more details on what is EternX and what you're doing there?
EternaX is market infrastructure for markets that can scale with intelligence. So it's based on two insights basically that we had. One insight is that people are not meant to be users of crypto because it's way too complicated. The hexadecimals, the gas, the fees, the bridging, the all of that, it's all meant to be automated. It's obvious, I think, right now for everybody in the space. And even on some blockchains, 80% of transactions are already bots. So that's one thing. And what's the next logical way there? It's going to be intelligent AI agents. Right. That's number one. And two, that markets and DeFi are actually not liquidity limited. So if you think how many people in the world hold crypto, only about 1% of them use DeFi. That's not because they don't want to. They're actually scared. Like they don't feel comfortable. It's too complicated. It's a game for pros. It's
Yeah.
gated. So if you could give them a simple way to participate at the level that is comfortable for them, that's going to be a thing that grows the pie of the market for everybody, for DeFi protocols, for us as an underlying infrastructure server, and for people as well, because they can, make their crypto move and not sit there idle.
What is AgentFi? What exactly becomes agent native in finance? Execution, risk, governance, strategy, or maybe something else?
Well, ideally everything. AgentFi is literally like DeFi is decentralized finance. AgentFi is finance done by agent, which means people are going to be just basically given their intent. Like, okay, I hold some crypto. I want a risk-free return. Right now, people achieve that by staking, for instance. Oh no. Or somebody wants to try to get a bigger win once, or somebody has $100, so want to try to get as much as they can out of it. So people intend different things. And agents are meant to actually make that intent work and automate everything that is too complicated for people. Like today, when we use the internet, there is like HTTPS. Most of us don't know what it actually does. Everybody uses it anyway. So, but there is a problem with agents that they need a lot of kind of guardrails. They need to, you need to know they're not going to spend all of your money, or they're not going to use some bullshit contracts that are some shit coins. Well, unless you want that. Yes, and things like that. So they need a good infrastructure for it to run. They're much faster than people. They need capabilities for them to actually make decisions and not ask you to sign transaction every time. They need capabilities that such as like predictable gas, because they cannot like do, why would they want to use something that spikes their fees like $300 when something goes down? So there is a lot of very, very tiny things that are different between how people operate and how machines operate. AgentFi is basically trying to gear that a lot more towards intelligence machines.
Let's start our bullish or bullshit show. I want to remind you that you can't say it depends. You should say if you're bullish about this or if it's bullshit, and explain your point of view, why it works or why it doesn't work. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
First block of our statements will be about startup culture and everything around building in public. And as we all know, that was been preaching for some time around different startups and KOLs. So first statement is AI is getting in demand and crypto is getting nostalgia. Daria, are you bullish or is it bullshit?
Here I would actually say that I think I am bullish for the time being. Because if you're thinking of like a startup culture, which means like, oh, you have an idea, you can build anything and launch it the way you want, it's a lot more easier to do in AI today than it is in crypto. Because the part that's actually bullish is that crypto has matured now. You cannot do the stuff that you used to do in the previous cycles with NFTs and meme coins with lowest effort that you can now do in AI with lowest effort. You have to actually think about your user. You have to think about regulation. You have to think about audits. You have to think about a lot of different things that actually make it more like running a serious company and not just throwing two sticks together with a band-aid and calling it a startup.
Yes, thanks. So the statement number 2, shitposting or building in public on X every day. Are you bullish about this or you think it's bullshit?
Actually very bullish about it. I think we're going to be moving a lot more, not just in crypto, but like everywhere, into like personal brand. Especially like in the age of AI, you are all you have and nobody can be more yourself than you are. So the more vocal you are about what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be completely tailored, all just building super precise, none of the personal thoughts or like political stances or statement or anything like that. But it builds your track record. There is basically no downsides to it, like unless you post some like racist stuff, but that's your own problem, you know? So yes, very, 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 very bullish, but obviously like try to doom scroll less and
Yeah.
work more.
So the next statement is distribution is first and then product. And this is like startup mantra. So what do you think?
I would say, yeah, bullish. I'd rather agree because we have seen, especially in crypto, for like at least the past cycle, bunch of build and they will come and they will never come and they never come. I've seen so many projects that are having groundbreaking technologies, some super deep research, something like that, but they never spend anything to actually get any attention on what they're building, and it just dies and it burns through millions of dollars. You could say the Robin Hood from VC money to pay people's salaries, maybe, but that has killed so much stuff. So there is the other side of that spectrum where you just bullshit marketing and you don't have any product. That's, there are people who support it. I don't support that much, but I personally think if you launch a perfect product, you're launching too late. One, two, you cannot know what a perfect product is unless you actually have real users that are using it and telling you that this works and this don't work. Because, There can be things that you build that are perfect features, fix perfect bugs, and everything looks amazing and nobody cares.
Yeah, you start selling as early as possible and then see if there are people who can buy and who will buy your product or your service.
Exactly.
Okay, so the first statement is airdrops or ICOs as the primary go-to-market strategy.
Bullish. Yes. That is actually the continuation of the previous statement. That is a very good distribution instrument. Like you want to get, ideally, before launching your token into as many hands as you possibly can. That literally translates into your user numbers. There is a different discussion about retention. That means that you still gotta have to have a good product for them to actually keep using it. That's on you. But if we have to choose between no airdrop and airdrop, airdrop's better.
Okay, but I see that many like altcoins, not many, but the majority of them dropped after like launch and they don't grow. So it doesn't, even if we see that, for example, Bitcoin is growing or Ethereum is growing, all these altcoins, they have flat prices. So what do you think? What was wrong from their side and what did they wrong?
Well, you have to, I guess, rather look at, who did well. Like Hyperliquid is a clear winner here. And like we all know, was like on 99.9 whatever of them are gonna fail, just as normal Web2 startups. It's just that with normal Web2 startups that are mostly private, you don't have any like chance or say or even like view into what are they doing and what their valuations are. But with tokens, again, knowing that most of them are probably gonna fail, you are so much closer to the product, to the development, to the potential upside, and you are a participant. Like, so it's like already closer. Obviously, it's not perfect, but statistically, most of them cannot grow.
So solo founder and AI tools better than 10-person team.
I would go yes. Yes, I'm very bullish about that. I think today, 10-person team, I don't know, I think 10-person team can still compete. 20, 30, 50, 60-person teams are completely like useless right now, unless it's all like a whatever sales support teams. Then again, I have not led those. I am literally going through this existential hiring discussion in my head right now because if I have to prompt an engineer to build what I want them to build, for them to then prompt code to build what they want to build, why don't I just prompt, Claude code at this point?
Yeah.
The discussion there becomes that like my time is not all that scalable. So there's just as much that I can build. So the engineers that I hire is the engineers who are better engineers than myself. So somebody who can go very deep into the very niche and optimize every single operation. That yes, that's still like professional people that cannot be
Displaced
replaced
or
by AI,
replaced,
at
yeah.
least right now today, because there is just so much niche that they have learned. But for people who are just starting, I guess, their careers or like, junior mid, I feel that for like agency, it's basically, I don't want to have to explain to you how to get something done. Like, you just go get it done. Or you even don't wait for me to tell you what needs to be done. Like, just go get it. So it's, if a person looks like they can be a founder, you want to help them get there and you want to get a benefit from it as like a hiring manager to get there on their feet and help yourself get there. So you want to get people with ideas, they don't come to your own hand. If you just need somebody who's just typing on a keyboard, that's an AI. Just use AI.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And that were our 5 statements. And looks like you're bullish about everything in this startup blog. So thanks for sharing your opinion. And we are moving to the second blog about agent infrastructure. And it's for pros and for someone who are interested in how everything works with LLMs and AI agents. So the first statement is letting an LLM generate 90% of your code base.
Yeah. Think that's bullshit for now. Still, again, all my statements come with an asterisk. depends on your code base and depends on your project. So, for what we do, we have a blockchain, we have an application level, we have a website, we have a dashboard, we have some bunch of Python scripts, JavaScripts, all of that. So all of that get, data analytics, bullshit scripts to do some little tasks. All of that is completely AI generated. I have a dump of data from our test net, and I love to just tell code to make little scripts to answer questions for me about that data in seconds. That is like 100% AI generated. I don't even look at that code. But when we talk about core infrastructure, the part that, again, that I have spent years working on, yes, there I go, I read every single thing that it does. I change it by hand and reducing so on. So again, depends on really the use case. I think 90 to 10 maybe it's too much, but like 80 to 20 is probably realistic. Like, the Pareto principles, you have the 20% of your code that does the most important thing. And you want to really know what's going on there. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the leg. But the 80% of the stuff that you have in a code base, you probably don't care enough. Or you don't, like, your time is not worth as much to be actually reading that code. So that's completely LLM.
So the next statement is KYC for AI agents. What do you think?
This is something that I cannot say like I'm very bullish about, but it is true. It is gonna very required, and we're gonna have to be built in this. So that's what mostly the regulation says. So I guess that's it's bullish. But it's kind of like your personal assistant. If you think about an AI agent as your personal assistant, you want them to be authorized to do things on your behalf. And if you authorize them to do things on your behalf, you are ultimately responsible in the cases of like AML or like the where the funds come from, the origin, the travel rules, the all of that. So there's different approaches to that depending on like what an agent is. So what we usually think about of is, KYC for people. So that there is a chain and a protocol, and there is people who sit like basically outside that connect it, and you have to do some background check or face identity, nationality, geo on them to be able to do certain things that are based on the legality of whatever their jurisdiction. Now, that would be true if that's the same that's true for an agent. They kind of sits outside, it tries to do something on behalf of a human. You want to run that exact checks. But for instance, the case that we have like on EternaX, where an agent is actually a smart contract that is already on chain. So it's not like something that connects from the outside. So in our case, you basically, for applications that need KYC, you still do a KYC on a person. But then they deposit their funds into the vault of their own control that they have, that is a smart contract. And from them on, you don't really need any more KYC anymore because it's just a smart contract address and you have the bytecode there and you literally know exactly what it's doing at every single moment in time because it's a smart contract that is on chain, that is visible. So I guess we're going to have to see how this actually evolves. And it's going to be a lot of tweets and it's going to be a lot of things based on different applications and whatever different things that are be doing, but some sort of know your agent. Basically, KYC for agents is going to be there ubiquitously.
Yeah, thanks. Great. So the third statement. Agents using prediction markets at their belief layer. So they literally take information from prediction markets.
Yes, that's bullish, 100%. That's the area that we're also building in, and agents are, again, in their core, it's an LLM. LLM has a lot of information. If it needs to take action in the real time, it needs information that is updated in the real time. And what they do, they could go on internet. What's there? Like news sites. News sites are outdated. Was there Twitter? Twitter probably is like one of the most, X, one of the most up-to-date sources of things. But then prediction markets and actual like prices of different things like gold, Bitcoin, whatnot, is the most frequently updated and like the most reliable data source. But then it actually goes deeper. Also vote on prediction markets, and then different agents or the same agents use this aggregated information from hundreds or thousands of them as their consensus layer, consensus not in the sense of blockchain consensus, as the truth signal of what the crowd thinks is going to happen. And there is research from like MIT, London School of Economics, that shows that actually crowds of LLMs, and especially if you use a crowd of very different LLM models. So not like ask ChatGPT 10 times, but actually use like Llama, Quinn, ChatGPT, Claude, all of them together, and you ask them the same questions, possibly multiple times with different phrasings, and you gather what they think, they achieve the same accuracy kind of as a crowd of thousands of people with like having 20 of them. And the advantage there is that they can churn a lot more information in a much, much faster period. So now you are entering the realm of 5-minute prediction markets, 1-minute prediction markets, and basically not even closing prediction, just a continuous signal that looks a little bit into the future. Maybe not for a long time, but just a little bit enough to kind of know what's going to happen, play against the entropy. So that's kind of what we are trying to get our hands on. And we have been so far pretty successful on like at least crypto price direction prediction within the next hour, in half an hour. Whereas most models, when you do machine learning, they'll do like basically next day or next like 6 hours or something like that. And we are doing like basically very, very short term to just show that you can have this little prediction window that gives you an edge. One problem there is that what polymarket, these human markets have been very successful at is exposing insider trading. Basically, that's actually what you want out of a prediction market. You want to give insider traders a way to show their insider information to the world, for us to know that something is going to happen without them actually having to go and talk to like the New York Times, you know? So that's another thing that maybe there's going to be just different types of markets. Maybe there's not much insider trading into like, a 5-minute price unless you dump 30,000 coins like just happened 3 hours ago. But for things like very important military actions or elections or something like that, you do want to prediction markets basically incentivize that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that sounds really futuristic and like we're living in wild times. But yeah, that's really
But that
interesting.
already works.
Yeah.
That's a miracle, but it sounds futuristic, but it works today.
Yeah, it works, and that's why it's wild and interesting at the same time. Okay, I have two statements for you. An agent native L1 in 2026 instead of building on existing chains.
Yes. Well, I gotta have to say I'm bullish here because that's what I am doing, but I gotta have to explain myself. Building on existing chains, I think, is a technical debt that you adopt as a startup on day one that you have no control over. And it's a big, big liability. This was different if you're building like 2 years ago, maybe, or not 2 years ago, even like last year, things like that. Because building a new protocol was hard. But this is now no longer true with so much open source code development that has happened. One, that is, there's Cosmos SDK, there's Polkadot SDK, there is whatnot else SDK that you can use. You don't even have to think about it. You just open up a library and it gives you a fully functional blockchain that you have control over. And you can, if there's something that's too slow, too fast, too much gas, whatnot, you can optimize for your specific application. Now, I think there is going to be a lot more app chains than there is today. Starting with like Hyperliquid, there is also rumors that like Polymarket are actually going to move to their own chain because they are fed up with having to be dependent from another team for their core infrastructure. The second problem why people were saying, oh, it's not worth building a separate chain, you have to build a different chain, was liquidity. Because getting liquidity somewhere was hard. That is no longer true with all the cross-chain development that has been done. And especially if you look at very popular wallets like MetaMask, like Ledger, bridging is no longer a hassle. It's 2 button clicks in the UI. It's the same as sending transaction on the same chain. Maybe one more button click because you have to sign different things like this. People don't feel like cross-chain transaction as a pain point anymore. So liquidity is going to come as long as your product is actually useful and it gives, people either an edge or a gain or whatever that they find useful for it. But you also get complete control over your infrastructure that you can modify, that you can whatever. That's things. Well, if you remember October 10, a lot of things fall down. Everything that was on L2s started falling on Ethereum. Gas spiked like to $300. Everybody started getting liquidated. Nobody could withdraw. Lighter had issues because it's an L2. Polygon had issues. The only one that actually stood up was like Hyperliquid. And they have their own upchain.
Yeah,
It's like it's a fully functional L1, but they don't market it as like general L1, like a monad. It's an infrastructure that they built to specifically support their very specific use case, and we're going to see a lot more of that rather than generalist L1s. I think that's now is going to be the thing of the past. There is not going to be like a new, Solana maybe after Monad. The Monad's also having its own user problems at the moment, but we're going to see a lot more options.
Thanks for explaining your position. And the fifth one, the last one. By 2030, financial management will be mostly agents.
Oh yes, 100%. Yes, I'm very bullish on that, especially for people that are like normal folk, because imagine you already have on your phone like your banking app, that does something. You probably have some money on like some stocks or ETFs, or you have some money like in a deposit account that gives you some return on your deposit. Who's controlling that? There is some guy that sits there in a bank, looks at the charts and makes a decision on like where to invest the bank's money. Do you trust that guy more than an LLM that's trained on all human knowledge? I don't know. I don't. Like, so for most of the people who have like moderate amount of money, it's absolutely going to be done by like agents. But I think also for like even bigger amount of money, it's going to be done by maybe more tailored, maybe more fine-tuned, maybe something gated. We're going to have to see, but yeah, why financial analysts? But I mean, by like people who kind of feel that this thing is gonna go up and this other thing looks promising is probably gone unless you're Warren Buffett.
Daria, thanks so much. To wrap up this amazing show, I want to ask you to give one statement that you're bullish about and one statement that you think that it's bullshit for this year, for 2026.
I'm gonna continue like the topics that we had today about like crypto and startups. I think one thing that I am most bullish about this time is actually if you were thinking of like starting a startup, there's never gonna be a better time to do it than now. Like AI is a superpower. Like I literally feel omnipotent doing whatever things that I want. And we are gonna see like maybe not 1% but 2% billion-dollar companies. And we are gonna see a lot more code being done, like 90% code bases generated by LLMs. We are moving basically from code production that was artisanal, that people had to write by hand and it costed a lot of money, to basically industrial code production, which means, yes, there's going to be a lot of slop, but the amount of code that is going to be done and generated and the amount of stuff that you can do in minutes and seconds is just going to be so massive that, if this was something that you were thinking about doing, just do it. Saying that I think is maybe bullshit if we're talking about crypto is an altcoin season. I don't think it's coming. I don't think there may be no altcoin seasons anymore even. There is going to be singular winners, maybe like a handful, but I don't think it's coming in a cycle like the NFTs or the meme coins for that, like just all the boats, rising tide lifts all the boats. I don't think that's gonna happen. For all of us who maybe hold some altcoins, I do hope that I am wrong here, but that's what I feel.
I agree with you with both statements about building startups, and actually it's really fascinating time to do something and to learn new skills. Regarding altcoins, there is a bear market definitely, and we'll see it this year together with global crisis, I guess. So everything comes together in one point of time, one place. But I hope we'll see some altcoin seasons maybe next year or 2 years later.
Let's hope.
Thanks so much for your time and for sharing your opinion on what are you bullish about and what is actually bullshit. And as we see, not so many things are bullshit, and that's great. There are a lot of cool things ahead this year: startup building and AI agents and everything around vibe coding and building projects. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise. It was fun, it was energetic, it was great, and I'm super happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been exciting for me as well. I guess the fact that most of the things I am bullish about is that having an optimistic lookout on technology has always been my strong side. And we are living in the most technologically advanced times that there have ever been, and there has never been a good time for building. So let's get down to it, and that's what I'm gonna do once we are stopped talking here. Thank you for having me again. This has been amazing. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks everyone for listening, for watching this episode on YouTube. I will leave Daria's links under this episode so you can follow her, ask her questions, and see what's going on with Daria and her approach to build products. See you in the next episode. Bye.